So for those of you who didn't see, about a week or so ago on the channel, I actually made a video talking about some potential Harley Reid trade packages that could, of course, happen again if he decided to request a trade. Again, a lot of you guys seem to really like the idea and concept of that video, and there was a lot of comments. I think it's got like 80 comments or something like that of all of you guys just kind of, of course, arguing between each other, having some friendly conversations about what is Harley Reid worth, what, if he did decide to request a trade, what would, these teams actually have to give up to, of course, make these happen. Again, a lot of really good conversations were, of course, happening in that video, so I thought it'd actually be a cool idea today if I decided to make a video similar to that, but instead of talking about Harley Reid, we'll talk about Zak Butters. Now, Zak Butters is a really interesting one because from what we know, he probably won't be leaving this year or requesting a trade. Again, from most of the reports, they are saying it's about an 85% chance or so that he's probably going to be, if he does decide to leave Port Adelaide, he would probably be leaving next year when he will actually, his contract will actually be up and he can go and make that decision, and Port Adelaide can probably try and find a trade for him, all of the above, right? But in saying all of that, as we know, there's still probably a 15% chance that if Zak Butters wanted to be traded this year, it could very well be happening. And this is actually, the rumors have been sparked more and more because there is a team right now who has a player that Port Adelaide really desire, and there have been some mock trades about what this could potentially look like. And we'll start off with the first team here, and that does happen to be the St Kilda Football Club. Again, as we know, the St Kilda Football Club have a war chest. They've got, I think, most of their picks this year, most of their picks next year, and they have absolutely all the salary cap in the world. Again, they seem to be done drafting for now. In the last couple years, they've drafted and selected some really good players that they expect to help grow this footy club for many years. But right now, they have an infinite salary cap glitch, and they want to use it on a bunch of players. Again, it's been reported that Tom DeCone to St Kilda is pretty much a lock deal on about 1.5 to 1.7 million a year. Extremely front-ended, while I've also made other videos talking about how they're interested in Jack Silvani. I think they've been linked to James Warple, amongst a bunch of other different players, right? But there have been a lot of news and reports as of late that Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera has actually been really interested about maybe going to Port Adelaide, as he's close with, Jace Burgoyne and Jason Horne-Francis. Again, on St Kilda's bye, he actually met up with those guys, which is really interesting. Again, I think Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera will probably re-sign, but the fact he met with those guys, and there are rumours he may have met with Port Adelaide as well, does make you think that a trade could actually get done. But if it was to get done, how is that going to be possible when Port Adelaide don't even have their first round pick? This has led a lot of people to actually suggest, what if Zak Butters was actually in this trade and they just kind of did a straight swap? Again, is Zak Butters better than Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera? Is, all time? Probably. Is Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera probably better than Zak Butters right now? Yeah, it's a massive conversation. And look, at the end of the day, it probably won't be a straight swap, but I can't be bothered going into all the bullshit about the third round picks and fourth round picks and who would have to add them. All of the above, right? So this has been suggested online that what if Port Adelaide sends Zak Butters to St Kilda, and, of course, St Kilda receives Zak Butters and they send Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Again, this low-key kind of makes sense because the most important position St Kilda need, I think, is an inside midfielder. And Port Adelaide's midfield actually has quite a bit of depth in it right now, to the point where Connor Rosie's had to play like a different position, and he's had to play some half-back roles because they desperately need a half-back. Again, Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera could be that option. So it is going to be really interesting. That is one possibility. Another possibility is the fact that Essendon reportedly have been very linked to Zak Butters. Again, if Zach Butters was to request a trade to Essendon, they would probably trade away pick 5 and pick 9. And I would assume a future second round pick, something like that, would probably get the deal done. Again, pick 5 will probably remain at like pick 5, but pick 9 will most likely get shifted to like pick 14 or something like that at this rate, just because of the academies and father-sons. That's why you're going to have to throw in a little bit more again. This could kind of be the equivalent of like pick 5, pick 14 in the end because of the matchings and whatnot, and maybe like pick 25. Again, that's 3 really, really quality picks that if you are Port Adelaide, you could absolutely get a ton of good players out of that. Again, I think that is a reasonable trade. Port Adelaide fans might disagree and might say, I got to give up more, which could also be true. Again, if that was to come down to it, you'd have to see how that situation would, of course, unfold. But at the end of the day, I think Essendon, they have a lot of inside midfielders, but they don't have the star power in there that they probably want. And Zach Merritt has had to do so much that I just fear by the time he gets to like 32 years old, he could really regress hard, because that guy takes so much every single game. It is insane how much that guy puts his body on the line. Again, that's not saying he will. Players like Joel Selwood put their body on the line a lot in their career and ended up going way later than that. But then you got guys like Trent Cotchin, who put his body on the line for all of his career, and he regressed pretty hard by the time he got to like 31, 32. So again, you got a lot of situations like that where I feel like it's time for them to go out and get an inside midfielder that's pretty good, and they've got the cap for it, they've got the picks for it. Zach Butters would be really awesome for them. I don't think they have a future captain for the club, so Zach Butters could probably be that as well. Yeah, I think Essendon make a lot of sense. The other team, you got to look at Richmond. I mean, I think Richmond would personally offer up like pick 3 right now and a future first round pick, and that would probably get it done. Again, if they were to get Zach Butters, that would probably be the equivalent of like pick 3 this year, obviously, and maybe like pick 6 or 7 next year. Again, some might actually believe that is better than the Port Adelaide trade, and it probably is. So they could do that. They've got a lot of salary cap. They desperately need a clearance and some speed in that inside midfield, you know, a clearance midfielder, because even though Taranto and Hopper are kind of supposed to be that, the clearance numbers haven't been that good for Richmond this year, and it just still seems like they're screaming for another guy. Again, they're going to hope Josh Smiley is that, but again, Josh Smiley is so much for the future. By the time Josh Smiley enters his prime at like 24, right, 25, Jacob Hopper and Tim Taranto probably won't even be in the league. So Smiley is very much, I think, a project player for Richmond at the moment. McAuliffe as well seems to be a big project player. They're probably not expecting too much from him until he gets to like 23 years old or so as well. So they've got a lot of time to wait on those guys. But right now, I think they would also be looking for a guy to fix up their clearance issues, to fix up some of the speed in that midfield. If they were to get Zach Butters with that trade I just mentioned of pick 3 this year and like future first next year, which would be like 6 or 7, they still get to keep pick 2, meaning that they still get to add a guy that they really like. You know, that pick 2 could change to 3 if West Coast get their compensation for Oscar Allen, which the AFL will probably give them. That means that if pick 3 comes around, I could see them taking a guy like Sam Grill, who's a really good burst and stoppage player. Again, his burst out of the midfield is being compared to Max Holmes and a younger Chris Judd. So if you were to add him and Zach Butters alongside Smiley maybe next year, yeah, that midfield of Taranto, you know, Smiley, Hopper, Zach Butters, McAuliffe, and maybe Sam Grill, that's a really good 6 in there. And of course, you got, you know, guys like Sam Lawler who could float in there as well. Again, that depth in that midfield would be absolutely insane. So those are the 3 teams that I think could really be good for Zach Butters. There are a couple others though. I mean, Hawthorn and Geelong are apparently really, really chasing him. I mean, I actually think they could low-key be the most likely, because I think if Zach Butters was to pick anywhere, he would probably pick them. They're just super unrealistic because I don't know what trade packages they could give up, because none of their packages are anywhere near as good as what any of the other teams would probably be offering. So I don't even know how they would ultimately get done in the end. Again, another team that I probably should mention because, I mean, they've been linked as well, and apparently Zach Butters has some good mutuals there. The Western Bulldogs have been interested. Again, I don't really like that. I think the Bulldogs have enough midfielders. I don't know why they would go for Zach Butters. I mean, it's like that situation where a couple years ago they were thinking of moving on Dunkley because Dunkley couldn't get a game in the midfield. They were having to play him in the ruck and all this for some reason. I mean, he was probably their best midfielder. I think he won their best and fairest in the year he left, playing as like a backup ruckman and as a forward though, like half the time because they couldn't get him in the mid somehow. And then they went and added Adam Treloar to that, which didn't really make sense at the time. And it's made sense now because Dunkley ended up getting the hell out of there. Bailey Smith ended up getting the hell out of there. I mean, they put players like Ed Richards in there who've just been so good. It doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, for them to really go for Zach Butters. Again, a couple other teams, I think Collingwood will be interested, Melbourne will be interested. Pretty much every Victorian team is going to be interested in Zach Butters, and I don't really have enough time to go through every single trade package. That probably won't ultimately happen. So I think there'll be 5 teams in the race for him. St Kilda if the Nasiah Wanganeen Miller thing happens. Richmond and Essendon because of the picks and money. And Hawthorn and Geelong because I think those are the other 2 teams he will very much look at as possible opportunities for his new club. But again, I'd very much like to hear all your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. Do you guys think that Zach Butters is going to leave? And if he does leave, where is he going to go? Again, I'd very much like to know. Subscribe to my gaming channel, which will also be getting linked in the description down below. My IRL/vlogging channel, which will also be getting linked in the description down below. Yeah, leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.